Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of NAPA Auto Parts and the NAPA Auto Car Centers nationwide, welcome to the second annual NAPA 200. And now, gentlemen, start your engines.
After a wild afternoon in Richmond, we come to Tucson, Arizona for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. The engines have cranked. The NAPA 200 is about set to roll on this interesting little 3/8 mile oval where the trucks make their third visit. It's an impressive field, an interesting field, about to tackle a racetrack that, Larry, has very short straightaways and very interesting corners.
Very interesting corners because it's parabolic. 6 degrees at the bottom, 9 degrees in the middle, and 12 degrees at the top. That's the reason you see most of the guys running around the top of the racetrack, because it's much faster up there.
Of course, you're also closer to the wall. When things go wrong closer to the wall, well, we'll see how that all unfolds. Here's what the corners look like. Sans trucks. Those trucks will be thundering around there at speed very, very quickly. It's not a long race. 200 laps on 3/8 of a mile is only 75 miles. Mike Skinner set the record for the race distance here last year at about 62.5 miles an hour. They'll run 101 laps, replenish the trucks, put on new tires, then turn them loose for the final 99. A lot of great memories from this racetrack, even though we've been here only twice before. P.J. Jones, coming from 3 laps down to finish second in the inaugural, was one of those memories, and we're certainly tickled to be back here again as Larry Rice gets his first look at the trucks on ESPN, and Marty Reed will be doing his sprinting at the halftime break. I'm impressed with this Dokken kid putting that Dodge on the pole. This guy is definitely a rising star.
Well, he certainly is. He's a young kid, but he got a lot of training in the go-karts, and go-kart drivers today are really getting a lot of progress, a lot of notoriety in all forms of racing.
Take a look at that starting lineup, which Dokken leads. It was a Dodge sweep of the front row here. First time in 20 years that's happened. Jimmy Hensley will be alongside the youngster Dokken. Michael, just 25 years old. Jimmy's been racing almost twice that long, as a matter of fact. In row 2, you've got Rich Bickle driving for Darrell Waltrip alongside Chuck Bound in one of the Roush Racing Fords. Then Mike Bliss and Tony Raines. That's impressive.
He did the best job of anybody. He missed a show at Orlando, came back to run 6th here. Very, very impressive.
The rival teams of Earnhardt and Childress, Hornaday and Sauter, the drivers lined up side by side. Then Jack Sprague alongside Dave Rezendes, the veteran Dan Press, and the newcomer Kenny Hendrick. Joe Nemechek is flanked by Toby Porter. As we move back through the field, another newcomer, Kevin Harvick, as we said, 16th spot for Joe Ruttman here today. Butch Miller, the runner-up in Orlando, then Rick Crawford, Randy Tolsma with Stacy Compton alongside. Brian Reffner owned the track record here, qualified 21st this time, pole last time. He's alongside Rush. Then Corelli and Keselowski, Boris Said and Mike Calabucci. The last 2 drivers to qualify on time were Donner and Rizzo. The provisionals going to Doug George, Tony Roper, Kelly Denton, and Kenny Irwin. But Roper didn't get to stay in the field because his truck owner didn't make the show, and as a result, Brevac replaces Roper in the lineup. This is Tony Raines, who will come from 6th starting spot in the Pennzoil Dodge, last year's ASA champ after failing to qualify at Orlando. The view from Mike Bliss' cockpit looks like this. He's given us some spectacular pictures during the course of our coverage of the Truck Series. Jimmy Hensley has this view from the outside of the front row as Dokken works alongside, and the green flag flies. We're underway.
You got a good look at Michael Dokken getting a great jump on Hensley through that inboard camera as he really got on the throttle and took off and jumped into the lead immediately.
Dokken out front. Bickle took advantage of the bad start by Hensley to go to 2nd spot. Jimmy rides back in 3rd spot. Then comes Bound, who has a notion down on the bottom.
Yeah, Hornaday's down on the bottom as well as Sprague. Both those guys went to the bottom immediately trying to gain some spots. As we can see, Hornaday down on the inside right here. Real close coming up there off that corner.
Tony wondering for a moment as Hornaday got a little loose in his attempt to get around Mike Bliss. This is the race for 5th, 6th, and 7th. Yellow Pennzoil Dodge carrying the camera. Raines running in 7th spot. This is the view out the back from Bliss.
You can see the Hornaday right away. After he couldn't make the pass, he dropped right in behind him. Not one to run too long down on that lower groove. Tire management's a part of every race, and that's part of this racetrack, is not getting too low, using up your tires, getting them too hot immediately.
Leader splitting up to run 2 by 2. Dokken trying to hold off Bickle. Meanwhile, Hensley has his hands full with Bound.
Yeah. Right now, Bickle seems to be just a little bit faster than Dokken. He just can't find a way and doesn't want to take a real chance. You can see him right there looking underneath, but not taking too big a chance of diving in under.
Bickle got the drop on the pole sitter Refner last year, passed him on the first lap and went on to lead, what was it, 117 laps or something before surrendering the lead. This time he's trying to do something similar with Dokken, get that pass made early if he can.
Yeah, you can see him coming off the corner. He tries to tuck down underneath, coming off the corner. Can't quite get enough momentum down the straightaway. When he does that, kills the momentum and has to fall back into second almost every corner.
Dokken, who is 25 and looks like he's about 18, doing a pretty good job under the pressure from the veteran Bickle.
Yeah, Bickle now, he's dropped right in behind him. He's now again, he looks down at the bottom, but he ran for 2 laps right in his tracks, right behind him, not trying anything, not trying to get that advantage. But you see right there, Dokken got just a little bit loose coming off the corner, and that's not a good sign this early in the race.
Here is Joe Ruttman, the number 80 truck, who started in 16th spot. He's picked up a couple of positions. He's up to 14th. And he goes to work there on Rob Rizzo in the 27, and it's Kenny Hendrick in the 8th. Or yeah, you're right. It's Kenny Hendrick
in the 21 car. Right. And he does pick up 1 spot. He's slowly but surely working his way up 1 truck at a time. He's not going to get over anxious. He's not going to do anything silly. He wants to get up front. He wants to be close, but he doesn't want to make any mistakes because this is a very, very tight racetrack.
He's back there in a bit of a danger zone too, unlike these guys who for the moment are alone out front. And that second duo of Hensley and Bound has begun to reel in the top 2, and this will quickly become, I think, a 4-truck race for the lead. Bliss and Hornaday are right there as well.
Well, it's interesting. You know, after they qualified, they were not allowed to touch these trucks. The only thing they could do was take the tape off of them and adjust the tire pressure. They weren't allowed to make any other changes at all. So the guys who guessed right with their tire pressure might be in really good shape about this point in the race.
Jack Sprague punted in the final lap at Orlando, currently sitting at 11th spot. 2 positions behind him comes Ruttman.
Yes.
You don't want to make too much of that rivalry because we'll be accused of being media guys trying to hype up the controversy. But I'll tell you when Ruttman called him one whack Jack yesterday, it sure got everybody's attention.
Well, I think when he said that, it got everybody's attention. Everybody was roaring at the press conference.
Sprague didn't like it.
No, he didn't. And, hey, racing, you got to give it a little, you got to take a little in racing. Unfortunately, Jack was the one that did the taking that time, and he didn't like it very much.
Yeah, well, as we have heard before, what goes around comes around. Of course, this whole thing started back in New Hampshire. Let's leave that alone. Let's talk about the race that's going on here today because it's a good one. The top 4 are all hooked up in a scuffle for the lead. It's the NAPA 200, and it's coming to you from Tucson. We'll be right back. Sports attraction. What you're looking at in the background is that stuff called snow in the higher elevations. Down here on the desert floor, it was rain. Right now we're under yellow because of this. Rick Corelli has stopped on the racetrack. 1 lap ago, the truck came by slowing dramatically, and now Corelli has brought out the yellow. He is dead engine, just short of the start-finish line. A big disappointment for Corelli, who's had a tough day here today in the Remax Chess Round Auto Chevrolet. He qualified only 23rd. Remember, after winning the Featherlight Southwest Tour race at Phoenix, he said we were going to see a new Rick Corelli this year. Forget all that consistency that everybody talks about in sound bites. He was going out and try to win races. He will not win today. He's got to be frustrated.
Well, he said he was going to make a new commitment. He said he'd forgotten that racing was supposed to be fun. He said, I'm going to go out and have fun and try to win, and that's exactly what he's done. But this was not a good way to start that commitment, I guess.
Well, of course, in his case, it was kind of like going back to his roots to get into the Southwest Tour car. As he goes racing with Kenny Schrader, another guy that'll race anything that's got 4 wheels on it. Passed him late in the race, went on to win the thing.
Yeah, you know, Schrader really looked like he had that thing handled. Corelli really came on strong the last part of that race down at the Copper World and blew him away. He's very popular in this part of the country.
Rick is a former champion in that division. Here is the running order as of the yellow coming out. Dockett, of course, was at the head of the class, but he was getting a lot of pressure from Bickle, and they were about to catch the traffic when the yellow came out. So this will be a test of fire for the youngster to see how he can do with that veteran on his tail. Here they are. Bickle running in second spot. This is no major change from the way they aligned early, although Hensley didn't get the very good start further back in the field. The guys who are in danger of being lapped, and now Corelli with the problem. Roper is not in that truck, by the way. That 34, as we said, is Bob Brevac. His teammate, who works for him, actually, Tony Roper, was faster, but the owner gets to drive. I guess that's the way it works.
That's one of the problems when you out-qualify the boss, I think.
Well, let's see if we can get more on the Corelli story. Marty Reed, what you got?
Well, we found out that the motor is not running, and I'm going to see if I can poke my head in here. Rick, I know you're frustrated. What happened out there?
I don't know. It just shut off, just like somebody turned the key off. You know, it's unfortunate. Chevrolet Remax truck was coming pretty good. We qualified a little bad, but I mean, we're going to the front. But you know, right now we'll just get out of here, try and finish, make some points, and see if we can find out what's wrong.
Temperature has risen about 20 degrees from when we first practiced this morning at 8 a.m. Out here. What's the track like now?
Track's pretty good. It's a little loose there on the bottom of the racetrack, but you know, I think that's standard at this place. You know, it gets loose.
Okay, they're going to tell him to try and fire the motor. Back to you guys.
And back to green we go with Dockett getting a great jump.
Yeah, and you can see that Hornaday jumped down to the inside, and he's gained at least one spot, and maybe two, as he's running right alongside of Bound.
He got Bliss on the restart. He works on Bound. Jumps in line behind Hensley. A great restart for Ron Hornaday, who had a disastrous Orlando. Big crash, cracked ribs, a lot of pain. He's 100% healed up and said, I am ready to get at it. I'm ready to get after my championship defense here in Tucson.
And it looks like Michael Dockett is much better at the start of the race than he is on the longer runs. We can see him slowing up just a little bit, or the other guy's getting faster. I'm not sure which. But on this restart, again, he jumps out into a 3 or 4 truck length lead, and everybody else is kind of bunched up back there in second, third, fourth, and fifth.
He's got Bickle to worry about from the get-go, but Hornaday is definitely on the move now, up into 4th spot. Hornaday won the inaugural here 2 years ago. We mentioned the great performance in that race by P.J. Jones, but it was for second place because Hornaday was the guy who came to this racetrack that he liked so much when he was a regular in this part of the country and went out and won. The very first truck race that we covered on ESPN. That was a good one.
You can see that Bliss is also doing a nice job. He's running a little bit up on Bound right now, trying to find a way to get around him. He's running in off of the corner just a little bit high. Let's ride along with him and see what he tries to do here.
He's going to try to pass it.
He's going to try to go by.
What he's going to try to do, Larry.
Well, he ran in a little bit high going into the corner, and then tried to dime it off. He got a nice run down the straightaway and tried to get in under him going into turn 1. Just couldn't do it, though. Still didn't have enough momentum. This racetrack's very narrow. Some aces, but look at this. Hornaday, on the other hand, is not having any trouble. He's gained another spot as he went around Hensley.
Hornaday has picked up 3rd position, putting Hensley behind him, and definitely is the man on the move. The NAPA Chevrolet, the NAPA 200 put it together. There is incentive here for Ron Hornaday as he seeks to successfully defend his NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series championship of a year ago. He's pulling away from Hensley. He'll go after those leaders in a hurry. That's a fast truck.
Yes, it is. And he once he catches those guys, they're coming up on some lap traffic. Once they catch that lap traffic, ooh, Corelli comes back across the racetrack right in front of our leader, trying to get back and fray at things, and it looks like he's still having trouble.
This battle continues. Bliss cannot find a way around Chuck Bound. Here's what it looks like from the outside as he rubs a little on reins in the yellow Pennzoil colors. Tony's sitting back there saying, just as soon as you guys finish crashing, I'm going to pass both of them.
Well, you know, that's a chance you take. When you go down inside of somebody, you got to make sure that you can get back in line if you aren't successful, because if you don't, the whole train's going to go by you. And you can see right there, the back end's wiggling a little bit, so he's not exactly set up the way he wants to be right now.
First look at the black 3 today as Jay Sauter gets into the action. An 8th starting spot. The yellow will fly.
And it's Rick Corelli again setting dead in the water down in turns between turns 3 and 4. He came across the racetrack, and it looked like as soon as he got across and started getting on the gas, the thing died again. And he's just having a terrible day.
Boy, frustration indeed. So Corelli is 2 for 2 in terms of bringing out the yellows. We're going to take a break. NASCAR timing and scoring presented by MCI. Take a look at how they run as we go to the commercial. Check this out. All-day drag racing. It happens Sunday, March the 23rd. It's pay-per-view. The Slick 50 Nationals, brought to you by ESPN Enterprises. It'll cost you $15 to watch drag racing all day long. Call your cable operator or your satellite provider, and they can tell you how this deal works. You have seen the future, and it is 24-hour-a-day racing. That's what I'm living for. I'm living for that day. We should be looking, I believe, for a green flag this time by. Man on the move in this field is the number 16 Hornaday in the NAPA Chevrolet truck. He has come from 6th starting spot to now run 3rd. Randy Tolsma has suffered some damage on the number 61.
He got into the fence coming off of turn 2. He just got up there, banged it just a little bit. You can see there's a white wall in the right front tire. Otherwise, he seems to be okay, but it might have knocked it out of alignment. That could be trouble.
Back to green.
And once again, Michael Dockett gets a terrific start. Every start and every restart, he just takes off. He gets a couple of truck length lead, and then it seems like the longer they go, the stronger Bickle gets and catches him. This time it wasn't nearly as big a lead as he's had earlier.
Dockett a little loose right there. I said Hornaday qualified 6th. He was actually 7th on the grid and has shown the most improvement in terms of positions here. In fact, this would not be a bad time, I think, to go to our NAPA field summary and run them down for you. Look for your favorite driver among the truck racers. Right now, the top 10 are all pretty much single file. Jack Sprague in that 10th spot. He's actually just picked up a position. He's moved around Dan Press, and that's going to put him right on the tailgate of Jay Sauter. Further back in the field, Stacy Compton had a good qualifying run here today. Keselowski and the Dodge, Rizzo, the road racers picked up a couple of spots. Tolsma, as we said, with a little bit of difficulty. Calabucci had a better than average run here. Corelli is out with motor trouble. And the field summary here as we go to Jack Sprague and see what he can get going here. He's up into 9th spot.
Well, if you look at the right front corner of that truck, they had a little trouble in practice. They hit the fence earlier. The brakes locked up. He went in the fence, hurt the right front corner. They had to go back in, realign the whole front end. But obviously, they got it done very well because he's pretty quick right now on the racetrack.
Did a good job in qualifying as he came back to qualify in 9th spot. So Sprague had actually backed up out of the top 10 and has now raced his way back to the point at which he began the day qualifying. But again, we re-emphasize, by the way, that is Dan Press there in the 75 with whom he is racing as Dan rounds out the top 10. I don't think we can overemphasize. Look at this.
Look at this. Jay Sauter on the inside.
Hello.
Tony Raines. Now he's right alongside. Ooh.
And says goodbye.
And look at this. We see Dan Press on the inside of both of them. Raines had to get out of the throttle. He took advantage of that. Got up to the side of him. Now he's going to lean on him just a little bit.
Press is an old guy. Look at him beating up on these kids. I love it.
Oh, you can see right there, he had to make a little adjustment real quick with the steering wheel.
He did very well in this race last year. Likes this racetrack. Dan Press, I mean, come on, he's almost as old as I am. The guy's pushing 50 years old, but he lost 30 pounds and is in the best shape of his life. He's really jacked up about the opportunity to drive that Spears number 75. This race team has a great tradition, a great heritage out west. This is the team that produced, among others, Ron Hornaday. And Press is tickled to death to get the chance to drive for him, and he's really working on Raines here.
And you can see right behind that right front wheel, he's got a little mark where he's already gotten into somebody as he put some of those moves on there. Look at Sprague. He's going to make it 3 wide. Nope. He thinks better of it. Falls in behind him.
You guys are looking for trouble.
Well, very aggressive. You got to be aggressive on this racetrack. It's a very narrow, small, tight bull ring, as you said earlier. But boy, if you're not aggressive, you can't pass anybody. And look at Press now. He's going on around him. He's really on the move.
Tony Raines says, I'm so much better off than I was in Orlando. I'm in the race. Maybe I ought to just sit here and settle for the moment for 8th spot. But Press, very impressive indeed, has gone around Sprague and around Raines. As they lap the 34 of Breback, Press is headed for the front.
Yeah, he's up to 8th spot right now, so he's done a very nice job. Oh, we can see Sauter right up there with Bound, and he just kind of got up there and had made Bound get out of the throttles. He pulled up in front of him, and there's going to be a crash if Bound didn't give him room.
He's picked up a couple of spots. Jay Sauter in the black 3 took his time getting settled in and has now begun to go forward. Before all of that action started, I was about to allude to the fact that this tight, well, Press isn't going to let me make this point because he's going to blow off Bound now. Never mind. We'll make that point later. This is Press. When you can pass 4 trucks as quickly as he's passed these 4 and trucks of the quality of those 4, you know that 75 is pretty good.
Yeah, Stan Press has that thing set up very well. He's very quick on the racetrack right now. Bound, on the other hand, seems to be having all sorts of problems as he's moved back several positions here in the last several laps. And I'm sure he's going to be looking forward to this halfway break to make some changes to his truck.
7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, the focus of the attention, and it's good.
Tony Raines right now working on Bound. There's Butch Miller in the 20 going on that low road way at the bottom of the racetrack. This time he moves up about halfway. Nope, he's going to go clear to the bottom again, trying to get around.
Shades at 1995. That's exactly what he did out here that day.
I'm going to tell you something. If you can make that groove work, you're going to gain a lot of spots. It's a very difficult thing to do. But boy, when you got the truck set up to do it, if you're fast enough, you can gain a lot of positions because nobody else wants to be down there. You got the whole racetrack to yourself.
That's Rick Crawford in the 14 that he just went smoking by. Up front with the leaders, this is a familiar picture. It's been Dokken in the Dodge, number 18 from the get-go, pursued by the 17 of Bickle, and they've been this close for most of the afternoon. Bickle has a notion. Meanwhile, Sauter works by Bliss. We'll take a break and be right back. We go to commercial, we go to yellow. That's been the pattern thus far today. This time it's for Bob Keselowski. A pretty uneventful little spin over in turn 2 that barely brought out the yellow, I would say. And as Bob motors back around to determine whether he's heard anything other than the flat-spotted tires, the man we were keeping an eye on here was Butch Miller. He had made that bottom work pretty effectively.
It's easy for you to say it's uneventful, but when you're sitting sideways and there's 30 trucks headed for you, it doesn't seem so uneventful when you're sitting in the truck.
I'll grant you that point, yeah. This view of that is better.
Yes, sure. That's right. That's right. He was real happy to see the yellow get out of the way, let me tell you. But you're right. Butch Miller was the guy that was really on the move. He was using that low groove right at the bottom of the racetrack, and he'd gone from about 15th up to 10th right before the yellow flag. And the longer the race went, the faster he got.
And for what it's worth, Keselowski just motored up beside the number 13 truck of Mike Calabucci, and they exchanged signals, so perhaps that relates to the source of the spin. I think we can sneak in another quick commercial break while they clean up and get things back underway so that we show you most of the green flag stuff. That, after all, is why you're here. A lot of good-looking race fans here in the Tucson area as they turn out for the NAPA 200. Here's how they look from 1,000 feet overhead. From the Miller Eagle. The Eagle, a unique twin-engine airplane that Miller Brewing is using to provide fans an exciting view on sports television. TV's fastest eye in the sky. That thing will fly 180 miles an hour. That'll certainly keep up with the trucks, which don't go anywhere near that speed around this joint, but speed is not so much the issue here. Competition, close racing, and figuring out where to go on the racetrack to make your pass.
And Butch Miller seems to have that figured out. He's gone from 20th to 9th, and most of those he's done in just the last 8 or 10 laps. As he set back in about 18th or 16th spot for most of the race, but boy, he was fast the last few laps.
Dawkins led from the get-go. We're back at it.
Dokken once again, look at that, 2, 3, 4 truck length lead every time they take the green. But as, oh, look at Ruttman, he got way high coming off of turn 2. That's Joe Nemechek, or John Nemechek, sorry, down on the inside of it. I think we had Joe in the beginning.
Says, I believe so. Yeah, I'll take advantage of that. We'll get another look here and see what happened with, well, we see the tail end of it. He may have brushed concrete up there. May have taken the LCI logo off the right side.
Well, I'll tell you what, and we talked earlier about it being 6, 9, 12-degree banking, and then there's marbles, and then there's concrete. He had them all in that little incident right there. And he's got some smoke coming out. He might have a tire rubber, or he might have an oil leak that caused him to get up there in the first place. In either case, he's got problems, and he's down on the inside of the racetrack.
Marty Reed, can you help us?
Well, if you see the right front tire on Joe Ruttman's truck, it is rubbing now against the bodywork that has been crunched in. He just got a little bit high. I was standing here just off to the side of two. I don't know if he got a little push from behind, but he is definitely losing a lot of positions. I'll be amazed if he can make it to the mid-break without having to pit.
So for the guy who opened the season so spectacularly with the victory in Orlando, trouble here today. Up front, trouble for these two, I think. Hornaday has moved to third. Dan got a decent restart, and perhaps for the first time is ready to get up there and challenge before the midway break, which we are closing in on, actually. Time flies when you're enjoying a 3/8 mile racetrack. 16-second laps doesn't take long to rip through 101 of them. And so the Gatorade halfway challenge awaits as we approach the 80-lap mark. And there is Hornaday, all healed up from his cracked ribs and ready to try to score his first win of the year and his second on this racetrack.
There's Boris said, one of the 23 rookies that we had show up here this weekend. I mean, there was rookies everywhere. He did a very nice job, qualified, you know, at least he made the race. He's now running in 25th and seems to be catching on. This is a whole lot different than a sports car race.
A winner at the 24-hour race at Daytona, the Rolex 24 in the GT3 class earlier, and now doing something very, very different. Our MCI rookie update shows that Kenny Irwin, currently 22nd on the racetrack, is the leader amongst the rookies here. That in terms of the points, not in terms of position on the track, but he is the point leader for the Cintas Rookie of the Year competition, for which Said is also a competitor.
And I think Kenny Irwin has gained a lot of spots. As you remember, he started back in around 30th position and up to 22nd, so he's gained a few spots so far.
Having to take a provisional to get in here was a bit of a disappointment for Irvin, that he is now showing in 19th position, and for the record, Said is now 24th in the number 44 track.
Yeah, he started at 25th, so he's kind of hanging his own. And he's, you know, he's not gaining a lot, he's not losing a lot, but the big thing he is doing is getting a lot of short track experience. And believe me, it's so important just to get laps in any kind of a series that you're in, especially a series as new as this one is.
How about the Dockin kid in that Dodge? He has led this thing from the drop of the green. And Bickle, who led the entire first half last year, has not been able to do a thing with him.
Well, I think what's happened is Bickle, as the race has gone on and on and on, his truck has started working a little bit worse. Dawkins' truck has stayed pretty consistent. He got a Bickle gained on him a lot at the first of the race because his tires, I think, were a little better, a little newer. He had it set up a little better. But as the race went on, Dawkins stayed about the same. Bickle's kind of lost a handle a little bit, and really he keeps keeping up, but he's not gaining anymore.
And Hornaday, likewise, I had really expected him to continue his charge and reel in the leaders. He's not been able to do that. You can see the interval from Bickle back to Hornaday, and it appears to be pretty stable. You can't really see the parabola, if you will, of these corners, but where they are running, the fast groove is, in fact, the 12-degree banking. The differences, the variation in the banking is only 3 degrees at each increment, so it's difficult to see, but you can sure feel the difference when you're driving the truck.
And when you just go out there and walk up and down the bank, you can feel a definite difference just walking up and down. It changes, and it's a very smooth transition, but there's a definite difference in the 3 grooves.
In front of the leaders, we see Ruttman. Look at Hornaday going to the bottom, trying to trick on Bickle. Didn't work, but with fewer than 10 laps remaining to the halfway break and the $1,000 from Gatorade on the line, Hornaday says, watch me, I'm going to fool him.
Yeah, it looks like Dawkins is beginning to loosen up. Looks like the back end is, just watch the back end. Looks like he's hanging that thing out, is wiggling a little bit. And so both of these guys are going to give him a run, try to be leading at that halfway mark.
Butch Miller, set up to run on the bottom, has made an impressive advance. Hornaday, taking a truck that's not set up specifically for that, is doing a pretty good job of it here. He's going to make it 3 wide. He's alongside Bickle and wanting the leader, and that's Ruttman in front of him. The Orlando winner trying desperately to keep from getting lapped. This is good.
Well, Ruttman just wants to stay on the lead lap, and he's moved back up in the groove, and it looks like he might have worn off everything that was in the way of that fender, because it doesn't seem to be smoking right now. Look at Hornaday. He's on the inside. Now then he's upside duck, and he's past Bickle coming off the corner.
He's making it work down there. We got one on the wall. That's Press. Dan Press has hit the wall, but not yet a yellow, and that means that Hornaday will complete the pass, and now the yellow has come out. Hornaday completed the pass before the yellow flew. Remember, while Winston Cup cars race back to the yellow, the trucks do not. The yellow flew with Hornaday in the lead. They will revert to the end of the previous lap. I think the leader is going to be Hornaday, but we're going to wait till they confirm that. Perhaps they are discussing that as they drive together down the backstretch, side by side, which is just what they were doing at flat-out racing speed a lap ago.
And if you think Bickle's going to give in that easy, I don't think so.
It happened close to the midway break, and in fact, I think was motivated not only by the Gatorade halfway money, but by the opportunity to lead the thing going in to halftime intermission. And then it was interrupted by Dan Press slapping the concrete up in turn 2. Press had been very impressive indeed, as we documented earlier, coming up through the field, perhaps overcooked it just a little, and tried to scrape the right side off the truck.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether he really got into the wall. It looked to me like the engine was doing all the smoking, so I'm not sure whether he actually got into the fence or whether the engine just blew up causing all that smoke.
Well, you could be right. I was giving him credit for that scuff I saw over there on the NASCAR logo, but I didn't actually see him put that scuff there, so that could be from an earlier incident. We're back to green with Hornaday out front.
Oh,
and a
look at
sprint to the midway point.
Keselowski was on the inside. He didn't think the green was going to come out. There was a big jam up behind him, but the leaders on the outside took off, and Hornaday got a great start.
It's tough to out-jump Hornaday on restarts. He's good at that stuff. We haven't talked a lot about Sauter, but he's up to fourth as they come to the midway break. And he's made an impressive run to get there. In fact, he's challenging Dokken a little bit here just to keep him honest as they come to halfway.
Yeah, he's going to try to get into that third spot as they come around.
No, he won't make it. Just short. Halfway flag flies. Wow. A lot of action in that first half with Hornaday providing most of the fireworks right at the end. Went down on the Butch Miller lane and rode it all the way to the lead. We'll take a break. We'll put Marty Reed to work figuring out what they're changing on those trucks. Reminds me a little bit of a hurricane. There's all that noise and excitement, then it gets quiet for a little bit, and then there's a lot more noise and excitement. And a fair bit of the noise and excitement came right before the yellow flag. We're going to take another look at that. NASCAR badly wanted to get to the halfway point under the green flag. So Doug George runs the number 12 up there into position, and Keselowski runs the 29 up there into position. But then somewhere it all went wrong.
Well, Keselowski thought he should be in front of George, so he pulled down on the inside of him, and he's trying to get out of the throttle so the leaders can catch up with him. While he's out of the throttle, they're in the throttle, and everybody behind him got all messed up back there. Almost was a big crash is what happened.
He had the out of the throttle part of it dialed in. Let's go to Marty. He's on the run.
Oh, well, it's a little cramped down here, but you picked the right time to lead. A little extra bonus at the halfway point. What's it like out there?
Well, I don't know. I mean, this NAPA Chevrolet brake parts truck is running great, but I don't know. We knew we had a pretty good truck. It was a little tight that first half, so I just rode along, and I seen I caught him, so I said, I'll go to the bottom, see how this thing works.
You and Butch Miller were the only two that could run the bottom.
Well, that's Butch taught me, I guess. I don't know. No, it's a pretty good truck. We just want to save the tires. That's what we did. Pick them off one at a time. We got to see what, we got to play it bad. We might drop back a little bit because we're changing a little air pressure, but we'll see.
All right, we're going to head for Rich Bickle, and actually we're going to stop off at Jay Sauter first. Come on with me, Brad. And the guys over here in the number 3 are their party. Put the net back up, and they're making final talk. And let me see if I can squeeze in here real quick, guys. Jay, nice move coming up at the second half there. What was the difference for you? Did the track come to you, or did you find something?
Well, I think the track kind of came to me, but you know, these GM Goodwrench guys are pretty smart. They told me to take it easy on the tires and wait for the second half, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay, guys, take it back up top because it's a little bit of a stretch down to Rich Bickle. I'll be right there.
I'm glad we got a look at that good-looking kid's face. New face in the black 3 this year, Jay Sauter. The question has been, how are you going to fill those big shoes of Mike Skinner? And he dodges that one artfully. He says, I'm just working on creating my own pair of shoes that somebody else can fill further down the road. Here's what the place looks like from high overhead. Here is your running order at halfway. Hornaday comes up and blitzes by Bickle and Dokken. After Dokken led most of the first half of the race, Sauter, as we said, has come from 8th to 4th. Hensley went backward from the front row. And here are the rest of the guys who have been struggling with this tricky little racetrack. Behind you see what was rain here at the track, but snow up on the mountains. And now Marty is down with Bickle.
Yes, guys making final adjustments on tire pressures. Rich, you and Dokken had a good run at each other there, and then all of a sudden Hornaday comes in at the end.
Yeah, unfortunately, yellow flags kind of hurt us there, and you know, I kept getting looser and looser as we went, but I was tight there after each yellow, and that's all right. We're gonna make some adjustments here and go back and get them get this diehard Chevrolet a victory here today.
A couple of guys have been able to run the bottom line. You think that's going to come in better for you? Will you try it down there?
Well, I'm going to have to get down there. That's about the only place you can pass this place. So hopefully that, I can get there and get Ron loosen up and get to the bottom and get back by him because, he's raced here a lot. He knows that bonsai pass at the bottom, and maybe I should have tried earlier, but I was pushing too much, and I thought, might come up in the 18. So we'll just make some adjustments. Like I said, try to get this diehard Chevy back up in front.
Guys, I'm going to go track down Joe Ruttman and Mike Dokken. Talk to you soon.
Well, Hornaday said he might drop back a little bit, so I'm sure he'll make it easy for Bickle to get back into the lead. I believe that, sure. We're going to take a break and come back with more. We're at Tucson Raceway Park. It's the NAPA 200. March roars in like a race car, actually. We've got the kart season kicking off this weekend. Pole qualifying, you'll see it tonight at 9:30 Eastern Time on the Deuce. Of course, they're down in Homestead, Florida. And the kart weekends traditionally include the Indy Lights. You'll see the Firestone Championship competition. That'll be Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, 1 o'clock out here on the left coast. Hope you'll tune in for all of that open wheel action. Let's get back to Marty. The trucks are coming out. Marty, you catch somebody before he left there?
Yeah, unfortunately, Joe Ruttman wants to be out there, but he is not. There is a lot of work going on this front end. What happened, Joe? First on the crash and now on the damage.
Well, what happened is I got into too deep and too high into one and just got her in the wall. The driving error is what that was. And then as we didn't have any brakes, and it must have knocked the caliper off in the rotor, and I'm sure it bent the upper and lower control arm on the right-hand side. So we're just going to try to fix her if we can.
So you're going for points from this point on?
Oh yeah, it's knocked us out of being competitive. I'm just you can't run with no brakes, so we got to get that fixed up. So the driver's going to have to think more next time.
Hey guys, I hate to say this, but Michael Dokken escaped me. If he's going to talk to us, it's going to have to be in victory lane.
The crew chief for Joe Ruttman, who will, I'm sure, share his sentiment about driver error there, is Randy Goss, the former national dirt track motorcycle racing championship. Here's your Dodge race recap. The leader is Hornaday, who led a grand total of 4 laps right at the end. There were 2 lead changes during the course of the first half. 4 cautions for 17 laps. They broke the old record for cautions in the season opener at Orlando, but for Tucson standards, this has been a relatively clean and fast race here. The truck's moving back around to the front straightaway to regroup and reorganize, and we're still waiting for Hornaday. We'll take a commercial break and come back for the restart. What a great little short track out here, maybe 10 miles east of Tucson. It's a bull ring. We'd like to thank the folks at Miller Brewing once again for the great aerial views. Here's where they come from. A unique television airplane. It's called the Miller Eagle. The Eagle, the newest eye in the sky on sports television. And that's the view they have of this little racetrack that has provided us with a fair amount of action. Did you learn anything, Larry, in the first half that might apply to the second half?
Well, I think everybody learned that tire management is very, very important. Both Hornaday and Bickle rode up there. They followed. When it got down to 10 to go, they both let it all hang out. They had plenty of tire left. You don't wear the tires out, but what you do is you overheat them, and once they're overheated, boy, it's hard to get them cooled back down so they're fast again.
The payoff for Hornaday is the point. As they start the second half, we'll take you down through the entire field and let you find your favorites. Sauter went forward impressively. Miller passed more people, I think, than any other driver out there to get to 7th spot. And the thing he has in common with Hornaday, who started 7th and ended up leading the race, is that the key passes came way down on the bottom of the racetrack.
They were the only 2 guys to do that, and you've got to have a lot of confidence in your truck. You've got to have a lot of confidence in yourself, because down there where it's flat, boy, if you make a mistake or you got a truck that's just a little bit loose, it's awful easy to turn one around, and that's big trouble on this track.
If I'm the rest of the drivers in the field, and I noticed that the guys who made more passes than anybody else in the field did it on the bottom of the racetrack, why don't I go down there too? Why don't they all go down there and run around the bottom?
Well, I think it's more a lack of confidence than anything else, because, you know, these guys have got a lot of experience. They know a lot about this. Not that Hensley and some of the other guys don't, but you really have to have a lot of confidence that the truck will work on the bottom. If you go down there and make a mistake, you could lose 3 spots just as fast as you could gain 1.
And again, with that parabolic banking, keep in mind that when you do go down to the bottom, you're not only running on a lot shorter racetrack, but you're running on a lot flatter racetrack, and it requires a whole different truck. This is the truck that showed us that line so impressively in the race here 2 years ago. He ended up, I looked that up a minute ago, I think Butch ended up 16th in that race because of a late race problem. But he had done the same thing that day that he did today, and that is take it down to the bottom. It was a different truck, of course. Take it to the bottom and pass people. So we'll see if we can do that on the restart, which is about to happen.
The real problem coming down off the bottom is when you come off the corner, you're actually coming uphill, and you're killing your momentum as you come up that hill, and it cuts your straightaway speed, so it really makes it hard to make passes down there if you're not really fast.
Wes Morgan puts the green in the air. We're back underway. Keselowski trying to wedge himself in front of the fellow Dodge driver Dokken and impede the progress of the pole sitter a little bit here. Battle for the lead.
Hornaday said he might go backwards at the beginning of this segment. It looks like Bickle might give him a little trouble, and he does go around it.
I didn't believe it, but doggone, look at that.
He was telling it, don't you ever believe a race car driver?
I believe everything they tell me. Well, I'll tell you what, that's impressive. I mean, Bickle passed him, now he's just driving away from him.
Yeah, once he got in the lead, he pulled out into a 6th or 7th truck length lead. And look at this. Now that Keselowski, who's down a lap, he's going around Hornaday.
He's trying to outlast himself. That truck's not working very well.
Boy, I'll tell you what, this, you know, Hornaday, I don't know whether he really wanted, he said he wasn't going to go fast, but I'm not sure he wanted to go this much slower, really.
Well, Dokken is looking at his tailgate thinking, gee, maybe I ought to try to get back up there in front. Keselowski got real good during the break there. He is a lap down in the 29 truck after the spin late in the first half, but he's as fast as the leader right at the moment anyway. Dokken has got a notion. He wants to get around Hornaday. Look to the inside off two.
You have to start the second half of this race on sticker tires if you're on the lead lap. So all these trucks that are up front had to put on brand new sticker tires. The other thing that they do is they guess on the tire pressure. A lot of them will put in less tire pressure than they really want later in the race because they know as the heat builds up, the tire pressure is going to build up and the stagger is going to change. So they're all guessing as to how much that tire is going to grow and how much pressure it's going to gain.
Of course, it's a bit less of a guessing game for the second half than it is for the first because they've got 100 laps experience to work with. That's Corelli down on the bottom making it 3 wide, running again, but well off the pace after the engine quit twice on him early in the event. Here you ride in the Cummins truck owned by Richard Petty and driven by Jimmy Hensley and currently in 5th spot. This is wild action right here.
Yes, it is.
Sprague at 24 is 10th.
Sprague is looks like he's a little bit more aggressive in this half of the race. I think he's run back there about as much as he wants, but Resendiz in that 7th truck also looks like he's ready to move up a few spots, but right now they're not passing anybody.
Keselowski wants to get back around the leader Bickle and get on the tail end of the lead lap, and he may have the truck that could do it, and they are simultaneously pulling away from Hornaday.
Yeah, Keselowski, after spinning that in the first half and getting a lap down, really seems to be one. Well, obviously he's one of the 2 fastest trucks out there right now.
Bob is the driver, and Ron is the crew chief. The Keselowski brothers having a pretty good run here. We'll take a break. Get back and see how it pans out. We're back. You haven't missed a thing. Keselowski didn't get his lap back. Miller is still working on the bottom. He's in number 20 right there.
Well, I tell you what, he's been running that bottom groove for the last 5 or 6 laps, and he gets in, he gets right down to the bottom, much shorter, but as he comes off of the corner, he just can't quite squeeze up into the top groove, and it really is hard on your tires. If he has that truck set up perfectly, he might be able to do this the whole second half of this race, but otherwise, man, it could be a disaster during the end of the race.
Here we're looking at him from Hensley's truck, which you can just see the corner of now ahead of Mike Bliss as Bliss comes up alongside. Breback on the bottom complicates things a little bit as Miller has to make it 3 wide but finds room. He's kind of been running in that gap between the 43 and the 2 for the last 10 laps. He can't go forward, but they're not able to advance on him either. So it's kind of status quo for the moment for Butch Miller.
Well, and he's had a chance to move up. He's had a chance to move up and take that high groove as Bliss is a truck length back, but he doesn't want to. He likes the bottom. He seems to think he's going to gain some spots down there, so he just keeps running it lap after lap.
We got a glimpse of Sauter there in the black 3. He made a run at Dokken during the commercial, couldn't get the pass pulled off. And Hornaday, I was beginning to wonder if perhaps Hornaday was holding this 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th place train up, but the answer to the question is no, because Hornaday has pulled out now to about a 3 or 4 length lead on Dokken in 3rd spot. He just went flashing by the speedy cam there, and he has a notion to go try to run down Bickle.
Yeah, you can see right. Butch Miller, though, very persistent on that bottom, and he's just running about the same speed. He gains a little bit through the middle of the corner. Coming up, he kind of keeps even with them, and then you can see going down the straightaway, going in is where everybody gains on him. He's got to get out of the throttle so much quicker to head for that bottom and not get real loose, so they gain a lot on him getting into the corner.
Having found that line, or perhaps refound that line that we saw here 2 years ago in the first half of the race, would there be adjustments that they could make in the truck to improve its performance down there? But simultaneously, then, do they commit him to running the bottom?
Well, you can do that. You can tighten the truck up so much that you have to run the bottom. It might be that if he runs the top now, he pushes so bad that he's slower on the top of the racetrack, because I think it takes a tighter truck to run down there where it's flatter than it does to run up on the top of the racetrack.
There you see Sauter, again, with a notion to try to get around Dockin, but he hasn't been able to pull that off as yet. And the next truck in line ahead of them is Hornaday. He's pulled out now, what, half a second, I guess. So Hornaday's not holding anybody up. That's a fact.
And as Dockin seems to be slowing everybody up, it's actually helping Butch Miller. They're all kind of in a line, and if they get somebody that's slower than they are, then it's going to help him. And he seems to be now up, getting an advantage on Hensley, and next in line is going to be Sauter.
Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and I guess ninth, all involved in that scrap.
Yes, and as Miller continues to run down there, he just seems to be gaining little by little by little. Isn't making any big advances at any one time, but boy, ever so slowly he's creeping up on these guys.
Bickle's catching the traffic. He's pulled away from Keselowski, and Marty Reed has more on the story.
Well, the two changes that they made, guys, that seem to be significant is they changed the air pressures. They won't tell me if they went up or down. And they also changed the track bar. So that seems to be the plan. And they say he will be able to run that bottom line if he has to. But if he stays out front, he can pick his own line.
Well, Bickle sounded a little apprehensive, I thought, in that halftime interview, Marty. But, boy, I got a feeling that about a half a lap into this second leg, he had a big smile on his face because that truck worked from the get-go.
Yeah, I think when he went around Hornaday as easily as he got around him, I think all of a sudden he figured out, man, this baby is on target. And that's just the way I wanted it. Boy, right now, though, he's got plenty of traffic as Ruttman running right alongside of him right there. Yeah. And they're hanging him up real bad.
Kelly in the green truck on the bottom, and Ruttman, who definitely does not want to go another lap down here to Bickle. And so that is the progress, and Hornaday sees an opportunity in that, doesn't he?
Right, and he's going to run the bottom. He's going to go right down to the bottom, try to get around him. Those two guys are running the top two grooves. The only place left is right around the very bottom of the racetrack, and that's the one he chooses, and he gets him the lead back.
For the lead in traffic, Hornaday read that picture perfectly and zips back into the lead. So Hornaday, who really cut his racing teeth here in Tucson, won an awful lot of races here at his old Featherlight Southwest Tour days, demonstrates an ability to work traffic like the master.
And right now, Bickle, he's mad at the two guys in front of him. He's mad at himself, and he's mad at everybody else on the racetrack because, he knows that he probably should have done exactly that same thing. He was running so good at the top, he thought he might get a chance to sneak around, but now, then look, he's going to go right back to the bottom and pulls right alongside. Boy, that truck's got to be working good to be able to do that.
He still figures he's got a better truck than Hornaday, that was a fluke, a product of traffic, and then in a straight fight, he's got the better stuff. And I guess the evidence at the moment is that he may be accurate, although Hornaday is trying to come right back on the inside. This is good stuff.
Right on. That's right, back on the inside. He's going to try to pull off the same kind of a move. Doesn't get it done, though. Looks like both of these trucks are working better down off of that real high groove than we maybe expected. They're both able to run down there in that middle groove or even lower and still be very fast.
Let's see, with the time change, it's probably just about the end of happy hour in Richmond, and I'll bet old DW and the Intimidator may be tuned in the back of the hauler to see who's got the best truck driver in their stable. Bickle for Waltrip, of course. Hornaday for...
Yeah, the Benson have got everybody out there kind of on the edge of their seat here. Hornaday, though, right now doesn't seem to be quite as quick as, again, Bickle's pulled away. Oh, we got a crash.
Refner has crashed. The track record holder here, Brian Refner, who sat on the pole for this race last year as a rookie, hit pretty hard there. The left front is flat, and so Refner will require attention. That will put us under, I believe, the 5th caution of the day, and it comes with Bickle in the lead, and at a moment when Hornaday had shown us some pretty good stuff in traffic, but that had then backed up and surrendered the lead. Here's the tail end of the whack that the youngster, the former ASA champion, took up in turn 2.
Yeah, he got into the fence going into turn 1 and followed the racetrack or the wall all the way around the racetrack, and it looked like he must have had some contact from something else other than the wall, because the left front has some damage to it too.
So we will take a commercial break for the yellow while they get number 66 out of the way and be back with more from Tucson Raceway Park. Stay with us.
Back at Tucson Raceway Park, I've caught up with a disappointed Brian Refner. And what happened out there? Because you look like you're running a pretty steady pace.
Well, fair. You know, we made our halftime adjustments, you know, tried to make some improvements. And I don't know, something broke our blue left front tire. Something happened left front suspension, and had no steering, and just locked the brakes up. And that's too bad. You know, Carlin Ford was, you know, running decent. We wanted to finish and, you know, just keep, it's a new team, wanted to keep building. But now let's have to look forward to Homestead now.
This is last year's Cintas Rookie of the Year. David, who's doing well out there in the rookies right now?
Good opportunity, I think, for us to update that rundown. There's Toby Porter, who is, I believe, currently the highest running rookie in the field. He is 9th, started 14th, the Hardee's colors, and a pretty name brand team that he's running with there. That's the operation that had picked up. Go ahead and run down the rest of your rookie update. Kenny Irwin, Stacy Compton, Lonnie Rush, Toby Porter. Now they are in order here of their standings for the season. And on the right was their running order for the race.
Toby Porter's done a nice job. He's been very consistent, very steady. He hasn't been down out of that groove, testing any of the passing lanes down near the bottom. But he's been very consistent on the top, and he's made everybody that's come up behind him, if they wanted to get around him, they had to do it the hard way. And the guys he's passed, you know, he's moved down to the inside and got around a couple of those guys, but he hasn't been clear on the bottom. He's kind of been in the middle when he's made those moves.
Rainier Walsh Motorsports is the team. Harry Rainier, a well-known former Winston Cup owner. That Hardee's paint job was on Cale Yarborough car the year Cale ran the first 200-mile-an-hour lap at Daytona and then flipped the thing on its top. We're coming back for the restart. Up high overhead. See how short those straightaways are as Bickle pulls Hornaday down the front.
Ooh, and Dawkins got a problem. He got way high down in 3 and 4. He hit the fence up in turns 1 and 2 that time, as all of a sudden, just going into 3 and 4 in that last lap, he just went way up out of the groove.
Gotta believe that something broke on the truck, although he continues to limp along. Michael Dawkins, your pole sitter, the 25-year-old who has picked up an excellent ride for the season in that Dana Dodge Kurt Rorick's truck. Great qualifying effort, solid run for most of the day. Now trouble.
Boy, that was a tough break for him, because he went from running in the front clear to dead last on just one lap. Tough break for him.
He didn't actually hit anything up there in 3 and 4, I don't think. It just took off on him, and then he hit down in 1 and 2.
I think what happened was he got up in the marbles. He was so far out of the groove, and the whole train was going by him. So when he got down into 1 and 2, he couldn't get back down into that groove, and he was still in the marbles. When he hit it the second time, he didn't miss the wall, and so he just finally had to fall into the tail end of the field. And he doesn't seem to be running too much slower right now, but he's got a long way to catch up.
As Bickle continues to lead Hornaday, let's go to Marty Reed.
Guys, you mentioned Michael Dawkins, and we talked to the Goodyear tire guys right before the race, and they said if you get out of the groove and you pick up some of the residue marbles on your tires and you don't get them off, you're not going to have any traction at the next corner. That may be what happened to Michael Dawkins.
No doubt that he was out of the groove. He was way out of the groove up there in 3 and 4 where that incident began. Hornaday is back experimenting with the bottom, trying to figure out a way to back around Bickle. He surprised him with that move late in the first half. It now comes as no surprise. It's also not working really
well. Yeah, and I'm a little bit surprised that he's going to it this early in the race. You know, I figured he might wait until 10 laps to go or so, like he did last time, to move down there and use that, because you know, if it doesn't work, then he's played his trump card way too early.
This is Raines in 12th spot, and as he chases the 14 of Rick Crawford, you get a nice view out the front of the Pennzoil Dodge.
Doug George in the 12 truck down on the inside. He's a lap down or so, and they're both trying to get around him. Bound and then Kenny Irwin back there. Both of those guys bound going backwards and Kenny Irwin going forward.
Yeah, Irwin didn't qualify a lick here. Had to take a provisional to get into the field. Raines in the yellow truck, on the other hand, qualified 6th after failing to make the show in Orlando. So that's a dramatic improvement. He's the teammate to Dokken, and they reorganized that team substantially after Orlando, and obviously have made a lot of improvement.
Yeah, and he's done a nice job here today, too. He's, you know, he hasn't gone forward, but he's kept his nose clean. He's run a good, steady race. And, you know, experience is, you know, it just means everything, especially with a new team and everything like he's in.
You don't get to be the ASA champion unless you can drive a race car, or in this case, a race truck. And he's a good kid. When you talk to him, he's very serious, very focused, knew that they were in trouble in Orlando, didn't do anything silly, tried his best to make the show, but knew he didn't stand much of a chance. Here, he's doing a great job. That's Bound down trying the bottom now. He qualified up front, but has not been all that spectacular since, as he's drifted back to 13th spot.
He's going to try and see if he's got a truck that's tight enough to run the bottom, see if he can move up on somebody. But as you can see, he fell back 3 or 4 truck lengths, and as a result, moved back to the top of the racetrack.
99 is the Roush Racing entry. Bound qualified at 4th here today. Currently runs 13th.
Resendez in his 7th car being challenged by Crawford on the bottom of the racetrack, and he seems to be doing a little bit of damage right now as he's working down there in the middle of the racetrack, not clear on the bottom, but kind of in that middle groove.
He's managed to get himself back into the top 10. Resendez currently running 10th, all white paint. You know what that means. Find a sponsor.
Yeah, and you know, it's pretty amazing a driver of his caliber doesn't have a major sponsor in a series such as this, because he's always been a very good runner in everything he's ever run in. And I'm real surprised he hasn't come up with something.
So he won 3 races last year, and I would share that surprise. Of course, his teammate Tammy Jo Kirk failed to make the show here today after qualifying very impressively at Orlando. She, the first woman ever to race the trucks. That's Mike Bliss up close. We'll take a break. We're back with more. We're back at the Napa 200. You're watching the race for 3rd place. Jay Sauter, who has taken the Black 3 ride from Mike Skinner, who's off in Richmond this weekend for the Winston Cup festivities, is currently in 3rd, but it depends on where on the racetrack you look, because Butch Miller, down on the bottom, periodically gets the nose in front.
Butch Miller has run every groove in the racetrack in the last 3 laps trying to get around him. So far, he hasn't pulled it off, but boy, he's trying everywhere.
Marty, can you tell us more about Butch?
Well, one of the things, Butch is making history today. He's the first driver in the series to drive all 3 makes, Dodge, Ford, now Chevrolet. Walker Evans Racing has just signed a big contract with Chevrolet. He'll be running Chevys here in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, but also in the Soda Off-Road Series as well. So, Butch, we were kidding him before the race. He got a big grin when I told him, I said, what are you coming out with next week, an International Harvester?
Wow, yeah, a good joke, and it came in the middle of a great move through traffic as Bickle, I don't know if he saw Hornaday coming or not, but he definitely saw the opening through which he squeezed, and when he squeezed, it prevented Hornaday from doing to him what he did in the first leg. Hornaday got the drop on him in traffic. That time, it didn't happen.
Well, that's exactly why he made that little bit of a risky move. He had to go between those guys, because if he didn't, he knew that Hornaday would try something like that. And now then they're coming up on some more traffic. There's a lot of traffic in front of him, a lot of guys running 2x2, so he's going to have to use all of his trick bag to keep Hornaday behind him going through all these guys.
A pretty good fight coming into the traffic here. Bickle's best finish is 2nd here a year ago. He can improve that by 1.
And the guy in 2nd place always has the advantage going into this kind of a situation, because he can go wherever the leader doesn't go. He's got nothing to lose by going high if the leader goes low. And the leader, on the other hand, he's got to make exactly the right decision or he's going to lose.
Hornaday's looking. He's hoping the bottom will pay off for him. But they managed to work through that traffic with no loss for Bickle.
I think as long as Bickle catches them one at a time, he's going to be okay. When he catches them in packs, that's where Hornaday is going to have his real advantage, and he's going to have a chance to get around. Ooh, Bickle got a little bit loose that time coming off of 2.
Tolsma is the next guy in line. The 61 truck making his first start in the Truck Series. Failed to qualify at Orlando. Bickle's alongside him, and Hornaday slipped a little going into 1. Is not in position to take advantage right at this instant.
Now, Bickle actually looks like he's getting through these guys when they catch him one at a time a little bit better than Hornaday is. So, you know, it's to his advantage when they catch him one at a time. But now then they're catching Hendrick and Boris said, and they're side by side, and that could be more trouble. There's 3 grooves, though, instead of just 2, and he's going to have to choose the one they're not in.
This will be the look out the back of Boris Said's truck as Bickle tucks in behind him. Hornaday did not clear the 21 of Kenny Hendrick.
Now he goes down to the middle groove, and he does get around him. So he's in a position now, and you can see that Boris Said now he's coming up on John Nemechek. So this could be another instance where Hornaday might have an advantage.
All right, let's see what Bickle's going to do. He's going to go to the bottom and leave Hornaday up top.
You know, and if they squeeze him down there enough, it might give Hornaday enough room on the outside. He's sure going to try it up there. Nope.
And Bickle finally gets alongside of Nemechek, but he didn't get that pass completed. Hornaday will try to push Nemechek back around. Looks like Bickle's going to escape that cluster of traffic without harm.
Yeah, you know, Bickle did a nice job. He chose the right spot every time, and he really got Hornaday caught in a box that time as he couldn't get around anybody, and he actually lost a couple car lanes.
Can you make any judgment about whose truck's working better between those two? We've seen Bickle have to go down and use the bottom in traffic. Hornaday has used the bottom seemingly by choice off and on all afternoon. Who's got the best truck? Is it always the guy in front?
Well, I think in this case it is. You know, as we take a look back here, look at this Butch Miller, and all of a sudden Mike Bliss is starting to make a little noise. Butch Miller ran the bottom of the racetrack. He might have used those tires up. Mike Bliss has moved up a couple of spots, and now then he's challenging for 4th spot.
Butch Miller is definitely not as quick as he was even 10 laps ago, because 10 laps ago he was racing with Sauter for 3rd. Now this is the battle for 4th, but it's a straightaway behind Sauter. So he has definitely, well, half a straightaway, I exaggerated, but it's a pretty good race.
Yes, it is a good race. As you can see, Bliss, when he has to move down to the bottom in that middle sort of groove, he's not nearly as fast. He's caught him, but now then he's just kind of running side by side. He doesn't want to do that very long, because when you run down there, you just heat the tires up so much that you do the same thing that happened to Butch Miller. Sometimes you go backwards.
Race for 4th and 5th, and it's a good one between the Ford and the Chevrolet. And it's a good thing it's a good one, because up front things have calmed down significantly. Bickle, for the moment, with a truck like the Bandit.
But look at Butch Miller. He goes right back down to the bottom again, and every time he goes down there, it seems like he picks up speed. He was running in that top groove nice and comfortable, but boy, he gets back down to the bottom and seems like he can run at least as fast as Mike Bliss is right now.
Next time, Ed, next time.
That's Barry Dodson.
Keep him clear on Butch, Ed. We're looking good.
And he's coaching Bliss.
I tell you what, there's so much to this racing anymore. It's not like it used to be. Those guys on the sidelines, they are coaches. They are telling you what to do. They are telling you where you're at on the racetrack. And I know more than once a driver has told me that, boy, it's so important for those guys to keep you informed and tell you, you know, keep your attitude right as well.
Look at this with 10 to go. Hornaday again opens the tap and manages to get by Bickle. He used the lapped truck once again to great advantage, and as a matter of fact made it pay off. Lonnie Rush was in the way. Bickle couldn't go anywhere, and Hornaday pulled it off.
Man, oh man, he sure did. He made that thing pay off exactly the way he wanted to. Now Bickle has got a tough job in front of him, because Hornaday is not that much. I mean, Hornaday's been just a tad slower the whole race, but not that much. But right now, he's pulling away from Bickle.
Well, I tell you, Hornaday said he might drop back, not show us the good stuff till the end. He's about to lap Ruttman. That's somewhat symbolic. The reigning series champion working against the opening race winner, Bickle, now getting desperate. He's running out of laps.
And both those guys running down near the bottom of the racetrack. Looks like Hornaday says, you want to run the bottom? I'm going to run the bottom. I'm going to stay in front of you. He's going to run wherever Bickle wants to go, and if it's going to be the bottom, then that's where he's going to go too.
This is for all the marbles. Bickle in the orange and black trying desperately now to do something with Hornaday, who threads through this traffic like a master and is leaving Bickle behind for the 2nd year in a row. Bickle dominates in laps led, but apparently is going to come up a little short. I better not get premature.
I don't think so, because Bickle's got plenty left. There's a little bit of time left. He's going to try that bottom groove, see if he can pull it off. There's lots of traffic up there, too, as they're coming up with just a few laps to go. That's going to play a big part in this race.
He's going to have to do it in a hurry. Chris Morgan, the starter, showing the move over flag to the lappers because the leaders are coming. But so far, Hornaday has not put a wheel wrong, and he's opening up the gap on Bickle.
Well, if Hornaday pulls this off, it's going to be 2 halves of the race in a row that he's waited till the very last part to really show all of his cards. I mean, he rode around Miller letting everybody think that he was a little bit slower. And then when the chips were down, when they really counted, man, he found the groove and he took off. And it looks like now he's pulled off into a 4 or 5 truck length lead.
A white flag in hand. It's over. That's the last lap flag falls on Hornaday. And the guy who loves this place so much, the guy they kind of nicknamed the King of Tucson when they came here in 1995, is going to cruise to his second victory in 3 years here on this racetrack. The NAPA Chevy has won the NAPA 200. Here's the race for 4th and 5th to the wire. Bliss gets loose. Miller gets the spot. Good finish to a battle that has gone on through most of the second half of this race. Some of the contestants in that battle dropped out. Wow. It came down to a 2-man fight. Dan Press giving a wave to his old rival on the West Coast, Ron Hornaday, who has, for the second time, claimed victory here at Tucson in the trucks. We'll take a break and hear from him soon.
When Ron...
It has become kind of a trademark of the truck racers as quiet once again settles over Tucson Raceway Park. Do that little donut. Once everything's over, they come over now and admire the black marks that Hornaday has just left on the racetrack. He's done it again. Hornaday cruising around to the cheers of the fans, and he's got a lot of them here in Tucson.
He lulled everybody to sleep thinking that he wasn't as fast as Bickle, but boy, when it counted, he stood on the gas, just as he's doing right there. Let's show these guys some smoke.
We could smoke them now. We don't need those round black things anymore, and the crowd will love it. I thought he was going to spin it again up there and won, but he gathered it back. I put an interesting little signature mark there on the concrete pad, and then headed for victory lane. I'll tell you what, Napa's got a lot of reason to celebrate here. The race sponsor also sponsoring the winning truck, and you were exactly right. I mean, he led the laps that mattered, both the first half and the end of the race.
Exactly right. And, you know, and he drove a very, very smart race. He didn't wear anything out until he really needed to.
He has just pulled into victory lane, which is back behind the main grandstand, and the party, the celebration, is ready to begin. Marty, are you down there in the middle of that?
Yeah, we're right here as Ron Hornaday comes out. Look, hey, Ron, I got to get you down here. We're running out of airtime. It's awful nice when you win your own sponsor's race, isn't it?
I'll tell you what, NAPA brakes and Chevrolet pickup trucks, I'll tell you what, flawless. I'll tell you, we had to push in it. I don't know what else to do.
Guys were saying up top that you were sort of holding back and looked like you had a rocket ship at the end.
Well, yeah, they kept saying Butch Miller's coming up on the bottom, and I said, all right, just tell me how much he's gaining and everything, and we started running that groove. We just had to save these brakes and tires, and I'll tell you what, Action Collectibles #1, and a lot of great guys. Goodyear came out with a great tire again. I'll tell you what, I'm just happy for Chevrolet pickups and everybody. 2 times in 3 years. Great job. Give us a thumbs up and a #1, because we'll be back with more from Tucson Raceway Park. Congratulations, Steve Park. As the fans file out of Tucson Raceway Park, we're down here in Victory Lane where the celebration continues with Ron Hornaday, and I've caught up with second place Rich Bickle. And this has happened to you before here. You've led a lot of laps, and all of a sudden somebody rockets by you.
Well, last year's lap traffic cost me the race. I can't say that today. You know, the crew made the right change at the halfway point. I told them out. We made the right change. We should let the air pressure down the tires, and it's my fault. I mean, I had the best truck here by far, but after about 60, 70 laps, the thing started getting greased up. I should let the air out of the tires. I give this one away myself. There ain't nobody else to blame but it. You know, they talked me out of it, and I should have just stayed firm and said, you know, let's let 2 more pounds out of each tire so the thing wouldn't get greased up. This here's Die Hard Bad Chevrolet. I mean, we ran good. Finished 3rd, 2nd. Maybe we'll get our first win there at Homestead, but this is tough to take.
Guys, Rich Bickle, second place. He's still in that points hunt.
I'll tell you what, there's a guy who stepped up and took the blame right there. Bickle 2nd again. Sauter 3rd, steady as he moved toward the front. Miller, impressive on the bottom, gets 4th. Bliss 5th. And how about Rizzo? Came from deep in the field to finish 6th. And that boy is both basically a road racer. That was a good run.
That's right. He started 28th, and he came back. He did a terrific job, and he did it so inconspicuously we couldn't have missed the whole thing.
Well, I think a lot of that came late because he was outside the top 10 with about 20 to go. On back through the rest of the field, Stacy Compton, after a good qualifying effort, winds up in 16th spot. Tolsma's top 20 in his very first truck race. We'll take a break and come back.
NASCAR. You've never seen it like this with NASCAR's greatest finishes and closest calls. Now you can own the most spectacular collection of history-making NASCAR moments ever assembled. To order, call 1-800-996-8866.
Back down here in Victory Lane at Tucson Raceway Park, we've caught up with third place Jay Sauter, and you were telling we were talking before while the commercial was on that Butch Miller was really amazing on that low groove, and it had an effect on your race.
Oh, definitely. You know, he worked hard on the bottom. The bad part was that he used up his tires trying to get by me, but I used up my tires trying to keep him down there. And so I was just glad to see him and Bliss working side by side at the end. That gave us the edge in third.
Are you comfortable? Are you happy with the improvement that you're making now with the team?
Absolutely. You know, we got to go one race at a time. You know, these guys in this GM Goodwrench team, they're smart, they're tough, they got a lot of experience behind them, and we're just going to keep plugging away each week, and we'll get that first win here shortly.
As far as looking down the road, what do you see? What little element is missing?
Well, maybe a little driver input. You know, we needed to make a little better adjustment at the half, and we didn't quite get it. We'll just take better notes, and we'll do a little more testing, and we'll be better for Homestead.
All right, well, we'll see you there. And we'll be back with one more bit of information from Tucson Raceway Park before we close out here. Stay with us.
The consolation prize for Rich Bickle is the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series point lead by 5 over Stick It on the Bottom Butch Miller, as he stands second in the points, having run 4th here today. Jay Sauter moving into 3rd. Hensley is 4th, and Joe Ruttman falls from 1st to 5th after finishing 28th today. That in the wake of a crash that significantly damaged his truck. Quick final thought from you, Larry.
Well, I think the whole key here was Hornaday was ready to run the last 10 laps of the race. He was smarter than they were at getting the race truck set up for that part. And as long as he can do that, all he has to do is lead the last lap, and you're going to be the winner every time.
Rich Bickle knows better than anybody else that it's not how many laps you lead at Tucson, it's which laps you lead. Up next, more racing. I mean, we have racing on this network, and then we have more racing, and then we have yet more racing. NASCAR Winston Cup Happy Hour from Richmond is coming up next, and I know you're going to stay tuned for that. I'm going to get on a red eye and fly back there to do NASCAR Today tomorrow. Here's the kind of driving that makes you the series champion and the race winner. We tip our hat to Ron Hornaday for his 11th career victory, 7th on the short track after starting 7th today. He ends up at the top of the world. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For Marty Reed and Larry Rice, I'm Dave Despain. See you tomorrow from Richmond.